Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah life coach and I support Muslim women with relationship and mental health issues. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you check out my website. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. I know, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the room itself. So yes, I'm in a different space now because I've hired out a recording studio where I can film my videos. As you guys know, being a mom, my daughter's now discovering her voice and her thing now is screaming to the top of her lungs. So it's quite difficult and we don't have the biggest home. So it's quite difficult to record when it's difficult to keep her quiet, and then she doesn't stay asleep for long because now she no longer sleeps the way she used to sleep when she was much younger. She will nap about half an hour during the day and then wake up. So it's making it very difficult for me to film during the day. So our plan now between my husband and I, because we don't have help looking after her, is that days when he's at home, he will look after her and I will come into this space. I will try to batch record most of my content so that I can continue doing what I do. And a big thank you to my husband for being the biggest support, honestly guys. If it wasn't for his help, I don't think I would be able to continue doing what I'm doing here on YouTube. So thank you so much to him. And thank you so much to you guys. Your support to me over here on YouTube, over on Patreon, is making such a great difference because spaces like this cost money. So I have to pay for, to have a space like this. And so, your support by watching my videos, by supporting me on Patreon, through the memberships that you pay, it means that I can then afford to do things like this so I can continue being consistent on YouTube. That's the side to YouTube a lot of people don't really realize. People love for you to be consistent, but it's like in order for you to be able to be as consistent as you want to be, you need money. And now that I'm producing more content, I also need support with someone to help me with editing because I can't spend all my life sat in front of a computer editing. So I'm also going to hire out an editor very soon to help me with all of that. But I'll discuss more of that on a vlog that I will post, I think either on my Patreon or on my other YouTube account, just kind of discussing life balance of work and all of that as an entrepreneurial mother. Anyways, guys, today's video, we are discussing why it is that certain women who are financially successful tend to find it difficult to find men. I think you're going to find this video quite interesting, and I specifically say women who are financially successful, okay? They are the group and the category that we are concentrating on in today's video. So if you're interested in that, let's begin today's video, inshallah. The first reason why women who are more financially successful may find it more difficult to find men, it's simply because despite the fact that women may earn more, most women still desire hypergamy, especially as it relates to finances. So they're usually looking for men who are doing better than they are. So if a woman earns 100,000 a year, for example, she will most likely either be looking for a man on her level or above her level. And unfortunately, the problem that we have these days, which I will talk and explain a bit more about later on, is that there just aren't enough men who are in that category. Or if there are those men who are in that category, because they are also high earners, then their criteria for women tends to be quite different. So women therefore end up with a lower pool of men that they can choose from. So picture this. Not only are you a Muslimah if you live in the West, but if you're also thinking about a high character man who treats you well, then definitely you're also looking at character. So you're looking for income, you're looking at character. You're also looking for him to not only have a particular amount of money, but maybe equal to your level or higher than your level. That means all of the men who are below that are kind of disqualified. Alongside that, you have all the looks issue that they have to fulfill. You have where they come from. You have all of your other lists. So it just means you have a smaller pool to pick from, and I hope that makes sense. There's a smaller selection of men for you to choose from. So that's why you find sometimes that women who are struggling, but they are high earners, may struggle. Now, I will say though that a lot of women, even if they are high earners, they don't mind dating or marrying men who are below them in terms of finances, who earn less than them. A lot of women don't mind, but at the same time, a lot of women who earn a particular amount, they do mind. They're like, actually, I don't want to be the one looking after you, spending on you, so I want you to either be on my level or earn more than me. So again, women are seeking that hypergamy in that way. So sometimes that may be the reason why you find that women who earn a lot tend to find it harder to find men, because those men are perhaps financially just not on their level and they're not willing to go down below that. On that note, I really also want to say something. This is very, very important. I think us women have it wrong in that we somehow think that our degrees and our income level, it's somehow a benefit to men. So a man should want to marry me because, I'm a qualified doctor. I'm just giving an example. I'm not a qualified doctor. So, she might be of the opinion that she is a qualified doctor, a qualified accountant. She earns X amount of money, a year. So therefore, that should add to her portfolio of why a man should choose her. Where we go wrong with that, sisters, we really have to understand that at the end of the day, those things are the things that benefit us. They may benefit the man in some way as well, but if you're looking for a man who is responsible and wants to take the lead role in the family and understands that finances are his responsibility, you having finances isn't an advantage for him. It's an advantage for you. Do you understand? It puts you in a more secure way because it makes you more secure because you're not financially dependent on anyone. So at the end of the day, financial security is a benefit for you. It can indirectly benefit your family. So for example, husband loses his job, he passes away unexpectedly. When things like that happen, yes, there is a benefit to that. There's also a benefit to that in the sense where the both of you can put money together, be able to achieve greater financial goals. Yes, but it's not as important as we like to think that it is. And we women have to understand that it's a benefit for us to have financial security. A man who is manly enough and takes responsibilities for his role as a man isn't necessarily looking at and be like, yeah, I'll pick her because, she has a degree in whatever. I'll pick her because she earns 100K a year, 250K a year. If you have a man that prioritizes your income level as a reason why he chooses you, you might be dealing with a gold digger. You might be dealing with a man who is willing to relinquish his financial responsibilities onto you. You might be dealing with a man who's thinking, then she can pay the bills, we can do 50-50. But if that's not what you want, if you are about that hypergamous life, then you must understand that the man who's willing to engage in that type of relationship with you is not looking at your finances and your degrees as something that is that important. I'm not saying it's not important at all, but he's just not prioritizing it as much as we think is important for us women. So it's a value for us because it makes us more secure in ourselves. It makes us less vulnerable to people who may want to, take advantage of us in a financial way. So we're not financially completely dependent on someone else. It gives us our own financial dependence, but it's not that much of a big deal for the guy who wants to engage in hypergamy. So I thought it was very important for me to emphasize that, because I think a lot of us have it wrong, where we think, if I have a degree and I earn a lot of money, why am I struggling to find a man? It's like your degree, your money, the multiple houses you bought for yourself, that's all good for yourself. And that's why I encourage women to work and have an income somehow and not do anything at all. I encourage women to work to some extent. As long as they can manage their home and their families as well, they should do that. But understand that it's not that much of a priority for a man who is happy to engage in hypergamy with you. So, interestingly, another reason why I think some women who are financially more successful struggle to find men may be to do with this idea that some men just don't find it that attractive to be with a woman who they perceive to be more smarter than them. And if you haven't seen my videos and on things that women should not do for the man that they love, I say to women, Do not hide your intelligence for the man that you love. Don't try to act dumb. At the same time, see, this is a thing that requires wisdom in terms of how you do it. At the same time, it's not a good idea to always try to outsmart your husband or the man that you're interested in marrying and always trying to show him that you're more smarter than him. In fact, a study in 2015 found that men tend to be put off by women who they perceive to be smarter than they are. So what that really looks like for some of us women, and I will discuss more of this on my Patreon, is that women who are financially successful, when you're engaging with the men that you're romantically interested in, please be careful how you speak to these men. Please be careful how, just make sure you're not domineering in the way you speak, the things that you say, always kind of diminishing the man's thinking, always trying to prove that you're right. Sometimes it's not worth the argument, because by behaving in those ways, what you're really doing is the man is beginning to sense that, oh, she's acting like she's smarter than me. So it makes him feel less than. Now, yes, he has insecurity issues where he may not be secured enough to be with a woman like that. But like I said, generally, if a man feels like you're behaving as though you're outsmarting him, then, he's probably a little bit less likely to choose you versus a woman that he feels that he can impress. And it all comes down to just being able to impress a woman, for her to be able to look up to him and things like that. In a healthy way, that can be a very good thing, something that nurtures men's masculinity. It just means you admire them and you respect them. And everyone loves to feel like that to some extent, don't we? So trying to prove that you can outsmart your male counterpart can be something that is off-putting. And so even before a man approaches you, if he hears that you have all these, you got the masters, you got the doctorate, you got he's already kind of having some preconceived notions, which may well be wrong. And I actually encourage men to give these women a chance, because you might be surprised. A lot of these women in these high roles, they can be some of the most feminine women. I think don't judge a book by its cover. Like, give it a go and see how it is. When my husband met me, one of the things he kept saying is like, he's like, Nafisa, when I watch YouTube, it's like I'm seeing somebody else. Like when he watches my channel, he's like, the way you come across YouTube is so different to how you are at home. Like at home, even some of my in-laws have said this when they've been to visit. They're like, if you see her on YouTube, she's nothing like how she is at home. That's because I understand my role at home. At home, my husband is the head of our family, and no matter what I can be in business or how I can come across online and things like that, I know my place as a wife, and I'm very confident. I'm a very confident person. I can be a very assertive person. I put boundaries into place, and that's just who I am. But at the same time, I'm also very soft. I'm very nurturing, and I choose to be that way because I understand what men want in women. And at the same time, because my husband also takes on the role and leadership of a man, it's easier for me to kind of rest in my feminine and be that way. So that also to say that men, there's a way that you need to be as well in terms of confidence in your masculinity, so a woman can feel like she can relax and she can trust you. But going back to my ladies, sometimes that's the reason why women who are financially successful struggle to find men, because of this idea that maybe if she's so smart, then she will try to, give me a hard time. She will always try to, disrespect me, treat me like I'm less than. So yeah, it is an insecurity thing, but they just tend to stay away from women who they perceive to be smarter than them. And remember that word perceive, because it's not always right. So again, if you have a guy that's highly sensitive, very, very insecure, any little perception that you could be right at something will crush him. So he might not be able to handle, again, being with a woman like yourself. So as a follow-up to that, what can women do about it? I think women should engage in, for example, some of the things I'm offering over on Patreon, which is how to improve femininity for women who are high earners, women in high positions, or just women who just feel like they just have more of a they're more in their masculine most of the time. I think learning how to be more so in your feminine, learning how to be a wife so you can have a successful marriage, just trying your best to grow in your womanhood, I think is very, very important. And lessons like that are very, very important for women in these roles so that you don't end up bringing the person you are at work into your marriage. Because if you bring the person you are at work into your marriage will fail. Because a lot of the things that you need to thrive at work is not the type of energy that you can sustain at home. You can be like that as well sometimes. Like if you're assertive, you're going to need some of that boundary placing for your children to learn how to respect you and respect, their siblings and things like that. But for most part, you are going to be mum at home. You're going to be wife at home. You're not going to be Miss whatever or Dr. whatever at home, right? So I say over my Patreon, it's kind of like having like two faces where you are almost allowed to be somebody else when you're at home versus the person that you are at work, because you realize that actually I need to represent different things. And those two can coexist together. I don't think it needs to be either or. I just think takes a lot more consciousness for you to realize that the moment I step my foot into the house, like the calm me needs to come in. I can't bring the go, missing like all that needs to stay at work. When you're at work, you put your suit on, you feel powerful, you feel all of that. When you're at home, you bring your softness, you bring your nurturing, you bring your femininity, and that will help to balance this situation out. I will also say, actually, I found that another study did also prove that women consistently outperform men in education. And I actually didn't even need a study to prove this to me, because I remember being doing my GCSEs, the year that my GCSE results came out, when I finished year 11, which is secondary school. I remember it showed on the BBC News, and it was showing that girls were outperforming boys in almost all the different subject areas, apart from, I think, physics and maths. And so what it was really showing is that women were going to be doing really, really good. So I'm not surprised that my generation now are in better financial positions as women compared to men. So again, what that means is we don't have enough men who are as educated as us and maybe not earning as much as we do in some areas, because I would still say, despite that, women outperform men academically, men are still, some of the highest earners in the world. But a lot of the time you find that a woman, she earns more than her spouse, she earns more than her husband. And because we have higher education levels and we're in higher positions, earning much more money than before, again, we don't have as much pool to fish from. And then throwing the fact that for us here as Muslim women, we're also Muslim women who are looking for practicing Muslim husbands. It's like the pool just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But at the end of the day, I want you guys to understand and remember that despite the fact that the pool is small, Allah exists. So we can't take all these worldly things and let that kind of confuse us or make us forget that at the end of the day, the person who's really in charge is Allah. And Allah is really the one that picks for you. And despite that your pool might be small, you only need that one person that's going to be your husband. Because at the end of the day, us women, we can't have multiple husbands, right? So you only need that one man to marry you, the one that Allah has made for you. So despite how small your pool is, if Allah says this is your husband, you're going to marry him, he's only one man. So, it's going to happen. So I want you guys to always bear that in mind. There's nothing beyond the law. There's nothing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot do. The best we can do is tie our camels, put our trust in Allah, work on ourselves, because we are imperfect people, and we as women, we've got our issues as well. So as long as we're working on ourselves and we're growing, trust me, people will see it. People will see it. If you are working on yourself, you're growing, and you engage with other people, because again, that's one of the mistakes single Muslim women make, and single women in general as well, is that we're just not involved in social things as much. We don't engage as much. And so other people just don't know that we exist. So if you are engaging and you are getting involved in your community and you possess these good character traits and you're soft and you're feminine, but you're also assertive, you have boundaries, and you're going somewhere in life, all of that, someone is bound to notice you sooner or later. Coupled with making dua and putting your trust in Allah, I'm telling you, it's only a matter of time. The right person will show up for you. Another point, which kind of summarizes everything I've said before, is that women prefer men who educationally are, more successful than them. So a lot of women who are successful, it's very unlikely that you will hear that a doctor is willing to marry like a cleaner or a bus driver or someone like that. It's unlikely. A doctor would also want to marry someone who's also a doctor, or maybe a GP. She might come down. Is she like a specialist doctor? She might be willing to marry a GP, but she's not willing to marry no bus driver or whatever. And again, it just makes her pool smaller. So if you're a woman in that category, maybe you need to start opening up your minds to giving yourself more options, right? Maybe willing to come down a little bit. If that man is still willing to take care of his family, despite the fact that you are a doctor, and he's willing to spend to look after his family, give him a chance. And he's a good man, he's a Muslim, give him a chance. Another thing that I think a lot of single women don't do is they're not willing to look beyond the title. Like, I feel like if you're really serious about finding a spouse and you're a financially successful woman, please take a second and look beyond the title. There are some men who don't have jobs that sound very impressive, but they are so business minded. They have property. They're involved in property. They're involved in buying and selling property. They're involved in buying and selling cars. I'm telling you, those men probably even earn more money than you do in your very high position jobs. But you might not even notice it because they will tell you that, oh, maybe I'm a bus driver. And you think, what am I going to do with a bus driver? But when you do more research, you come to find out that it's not only bus driving that they're doing. They're taking their income and they are investing it. And their investments is building for them a very large portfolio. And they just look like an average guy. So sometimes give somebody a chance and get to know them. You never know. You might find that they actually have a lot more money than the amount that you assume that they have. So I just think that that's a very important thing to mention for women who are actually serious about meeting a good, high quality man. My final point about why some, women who are high earners tend to find it difficult to get married. Actually, this point can just be true for any woman, to be honest, not just a high earning women. And that is that women generally tend to have better emotional intelligence. And for men watching this, if you're struggling to find a woman, think about your emotional intelligence, because women value that a lot in the spouses that they choose. And so because women generally are the genders that tend to have more emotional intelligence, men tend to be the ones generally with not as much emotional intelligence. And because of that, because women seek it more and they're not finding it, they're therefore not choosing the partners or the men who don't have much of it. So emotional intelligence, there's a discrepancy there between the two genders. And sometimes it makes it more difficult for women to choose the men that they want, because they may be like, he has everything, but he doesn't have emotional intelligence. And, I don't feel safe with him, right? So it goes back to this need for a woman to feel safe, the need for her to feel comfortable, to feel like she can be herself and not have to, walk on eggshells and things like that, and not feel, insecure around the particular man. In order for her to feel that way, that man has to have a good amount of emotional intelligence. Not necessarily the same as she does, because we're created differently. Men are just, most of them are not going to be on the same level as we are. Some may even be above some of us women in terms of emotional intelligence, but generally women tend to have a bit more. So understood that men are not going to be on the same emotional intelligence level as us women, but I think in general, women are just looking for men whom they can feel that safety and that security with. And unfortunately, these days, it's not always the case. Having said all of that, I know it sounds like the men are just trash these days. But like I keep telling you guys, there are good men in the world. They're not perfect people. There are no perfect men in this world, but there are good men in this world. And as much as we're seeking to self-improve and do better, there are men out there who are also seeking, to do better. And so if there's any woman out there that's watching, she's already married, and you can sit there and be like, you know what, alhamdulillah, my husband is actually a good man. Keep praising him. Keep praising your husband for what he does right, because I don't think men get enough of that these days coming from us women. So there are good men out there. You can find yourself one. But if you're a high earning woman, you definitely want to work on certain areas, and I'll definitely recommend you check out my Patreon and you join over there so you could get regular videos on how to improve yourself as a woman in general, so that you would, build a happier home when the right person shows up. All right, my lovelies, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen this video that I made quite a while ago, definitely make sure you check it out, and I will see you guys in my next one. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and also leave me any comment in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys in my next one. Assalamu alaikum.